Take my mind to another place. I feel your thunder, I feel your rays on my skin. Take my mind to another place. I feel your thunder, I feel your rays on my skin. When it's time to wait, show me way. Ways to follow attention. Ways to unknown dimensions.
Baby, why you move like that? Baby, how you do it like that? I just need you right here. Maybe it's the moonlight, yeah. Do it right, yeah. I can't see the skies falling. We don't talk like you're falling. Where will we go?
Take my mind to another place.
I was recently in Nashville where I was challenged to shoot a $2.6 million mansion using just an iPhone. And that video that you just watched, that was the result. With over 400,000 views across platforms, the number one question that I got was how. So in this video, I'm going to show you how you can shoot cinematic real estate videos using your iPhone. To make this simple, I've broken up this video into 3 segments, starting off with settings and gear, going into filming, and finally the editing. So without further ado, let us dive into the settings and the setup. First things first, let's talk about the gear. So that video was shot on an iPhone 15 Pro, and we used the DJI RS4 for the gimbal. Now to make that setup work, we did have to use some counterweights on the front end of the setup, just to make sure that the setup was actually heavy enough and balanceable. And then as well, just to mount the iPhone to the gimbal, we used the standard DJI quick release plate, and then we had just kind of a good quality iPhone like tripod mount screwed onto that quick release plate. And then obviously the iPhone was just slotted right into that stand, and it worked perfect. Now let's talk about the iPhone settings, as this actually sparked quite a bit of conversation. Now I had my resolution set to 4K, which is pretty industry standard these days, and my frame rate set to 60 frames per second. Now when it comes to the actual iPhone picture profile, just kept it normal. All right, no ProRes, no log, just your standard default iPhone picture profile. Now, yes, sure, ProRes may help a little bit with the quality. Log may help a little bit with the quality, but the purpose of this challenge was to show you that it's possible to shoot high quality real estate videos with your iPhone without needing all the fancy bells and whistles. Now, there is one more iPhone setting I do want to touch on because I do think it is important, and that is the lock auto white balance. Now, when it comes to shooting real estate, having the correct white balance is quite important. This is going to make sure that the interiors of the home, they look accurate, right? The walls aren't too blue and they're not too yellow. And so the iPhone obviously is full auto, meaning it has auto white balance, which is great. That's going to help us. But it's always on, even when you're recording. So it's not unlikely that you could be filming, you could be mid-shot, and if the lighting in your scene changes, the white balance could change mid-shot, which is a bit of a problem because you can obviously visually see that, and it's going to make color grading a royal pain. So what that lock auto white balance feature is going to do, essentially, your camera is going to operate as normal. The white balance is going to be on auto. However, when you hit record, the white balance is going to lock. It is not going to change mid-shot. And so that is important, and I want to make sure that you guys know that and turn that on in your settings. For the gimbal settings, I had the RS4 set to PF mode, which is pan follow mode, and I had my follow speed set to slow. If you want to know my exact gimbal settings, you can click and watch this video right here where I cover everything you need to know about a gimbal in depth. And yes, for the haters, there was a drone. There are 3 drone shots in that video, and we used the DJI Air 3 to capture those shots. Now, let us move on to the filming. For the filming aspect of this video, we used 2 lenses on the iPhone 15 Pro. We used the 0.5x lens for our wide shots, and then we used the 2x lens for our detail shots. Now, I'm gonna be honest, I don't actually love the way the 2x lens looks. I find it comes out a little muddy, a little soft, especially if you're not in the optimal lighting conditions, which we weren't. We kind of lost all our natural light by the time we got to filming our detail shots. So it was a little bit darker than we may have preferred. But in that scenario, it's actually quite acceptable. Like, it's totally all right if you want to use the 1x lens for your detail shots. Nothing wrong with that. We used the 2x because we found that it was closest to a 50mm lens equivalent on a full frame camera. So that's why we use the 2x lens, but you can use either the 1x or the 2x when it comes to shooting your detail shots. Now for this video, we were focused on capturing the 4, technically 5 fundamental real estate shots. We've got the wide straight push, the wide curve push, the wide parallax, the detail shot, and then I guess you could throw in like the creative shot. Technically not a fundamental, but still I think is important to kind of get looped up into there. Now with that 5-shot framework, you can shoot banger real estate videos with whatever gear and whatever house. Another very important step when it comes to filming on an iPhone is going to be your compositions. A lot of amateurs don't care, or they don't pay attention to their compositions, which can usually be a pretty dead giveaway that you're shooting on an iPhone. Poor composition just makes your video in general look less professional. And when you're shooting on an iPhone, that's already kind of working against you. So what I would suggest is that you go and turn on the grid lines for your camera so that you can still get pro level compositions. You can create really good compositions even though you're shooting on an iPhone, and that's gonna help your footage look more cinematic. Now, the final tip for filming on an iPhone is to lock your exposure and your focus before every shot. Now, just like the white balance, everything on the iPhone is full auto, even when you're recording. So before each shot, tap and hold on the screen to make sure that you lock the focus. You can adjust the exposure too. If it's exposing a little too bright, you can bring it down a little bit. If it's exposing a little too dark, you can bring it up a little bit. And that way you can go do your shot and nothing is going to change on you mid-shot, right? If you're moving through different rooms and the lighting changes, your iPhone adjusts. Again, it makes the editing process a little more complicated and it just makes your footage look a little less professional. So make sure that you lock those things before each shot and you'll have nothing to worry about. Now let's talk about the editing. A lot of what makes iPhone footage look pretty good or better is due to the editing and mostly the color grading. So let's take a look at what we did for color grading this iPhone footage. So as you can see, this is the standard / raw iPhone footage out of the 15 Pro. As you can see, like, it looks very iPhone-y. You know, it's bland. It looks bland. So here's my color grading process to making this look a lot better. Now, the first step that I did was I added my look LUT, which is up here, custom LUT. If I turn this on, it's called Daybreak by Burnsy. This is one of my staples I use in a lot of my videos. Now, I have this one toned down to about 61%. You have to remember, this footage is not log, meaning we can only push the colors so far. Now, if I were to crank this to 100%, you can see, you know, that's pretty intense. Obviously a little too intense for what we're going for in this video. So we'll drag that back. I mean, sometimes just personal preference, I'll play around with the slider. I found that it looked best at around 61%. If we cross-reference that, an exterior shot, that's what that exterior shot looks like before and after, right? So you can see this LUT obviously adds a lot of contrast and actually makes our footage a little bit darker. So the next step that I did was I made a color adjustments. If we turn this on, you can see I added a lot of brightness and I actually added a lot of saturation. Because again, with this iPhone footage, we want to make it pop. We want to make it look like it's not iPhone. And so typically, you know, if we were to look at that standard look before, very bland, not a lot of contrast, not a lot of saturation. So we're adding the brightness and we're adding the saturation. And that's gonna go obviously pretty global across the whole video. Again, if we cross-reference this with the exterior shot, you know, that looks a lot better if we just turn this on and off, right? Brightness, saturation, the LUT did a pretty good job of adding the contrast, so I'm not too worried about that. Now, Second last step, you can see this is what I was talking about, the white balance. I screwed up the white balance on this shot. So our interior shots, or this interior shot in particular, is very yellow, very unflattering, very unnatural. So to fix that, I'm gonna hop over to the individual clip, right? This is usually a clip by clip basis. I'm gonna hop down to the individual clip. We're gonna go to the color curves. Now I'm gonna turn this on and you're gonna see the difference. On, off, on, off, on. Now let's reset this. I'm gonna show you how I did that. We're gonna go to this color curve. We're gonna select the eyedropper. We're gonna select the color we want to get rid of. So in this case, it's yellow. So we're gonna go up here. Obviously the cabinet is not that yellow. We don't want it to be that yellow. So I just click, you can see we've got a little line here. That's approximately the luma value of where that yellow is. I'm gonna make a point and I'm just gonna start dragging down. Drag down, 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 and I'll maybe bring this back a little bit too. And you can see now those walls are starting to look a little bit more white, a little bit more natural. And I think that looks good there. So again, before, after. So that's how we correct the white balance. Now, the last step, we're actually gonna go back up to this adjustment layer. This is one of my favorite effects. It's called M-Film Look by Motion VFX. If we add this on, you can see it's very subtle, but what we're doing, if we go over to this exterior shot, maybe you'll see it a little bit more. We scroll down, I'll show you what I did. We add a little bit of aberration. So you can see here in the corners, if we turn this on and off again, look in the corners here. Oh, look in the corners. You can see we're softening up those corners a little bit. This is more of a stylistic choice. This isn't, say, natural, but it's just a little extra something that's gonna make your iPhone footage not look so standard. So it's just a little bit of aberration and a little bit of lens blur in the corners. And that's how we took our iPhone footage from looking super basic to looking professional. The last thing I want to touch on are just a few caveats or nuances when it comes to creating real estate videos with an iPhone. Now, the first one is that the footage is always going to look better when you have really good lighting and a really good house. This video is a pretty prime example of that. We had pretty good lighting and a pretty baller house, which helps kind of just distract from the fact that this video was actually shot on an iPhone. Having poor lighting and an average house, it's not terrible. Like, you're not screwed, all right? If you run into those conditions, you're not screwed. It is just gonna be a little bit, that iPhone look is just gonna be a little bit more noticeable. The second thing is that I would actually recommend using a pro level gimbal, such as the DJI RS4, which we use for this video, or even the RS4 Mini. Now, the handheld gimbals for iPhone, they're great, right? They do the job. But if you're looking for the best smoothness results, if you want to have the smoothest footage, your best bet is going to be with a higher budget or just more pro level gimbal. The smaller ones, more prone to shake. The bigger ones, they're less prone to shake. They're better, they're going to be easier to hold. And then also, when you upgrade from your iPhone to a more standard camera setup, you don't have to buy a new gimbal. Those gimbals are already going to be ready for you and you'll know how to use them. The last little thing, or last little caveat, is that you don't need a pro model iPhone to capture or create really good real estate videos. All you need is an iPhone with two lenses. If you've got the 0.5 lens and you got the standard lens, you're good, you're set. Sure, the pro model iPhones, they might give you a little bit more flexibility with the options of the camera. You might have a bit better image quality. So if you want to upgrade to a pro model iPhone, sure, go for it. But it's not absolutely necessary. So there you go. That's how you can create high quality real estate videos shooting with an iPhone. If you got value out of this video, I think you're really gonna enjoy this one right here. With that all said, I will see you in the next one.